Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 170. If you're watching one of my videos for the first time, or you just haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future Jujutsu Kaisen videos and help us reach our newest goal of hitting 5,000 subscribers. If we manage to do that, I'm going to suffer through a 24-hour long live stream. So if you're interested in that, definitely be sure to subscribe and help us reach that goal. Also, for those of you who may be interested, I am going to be starting One Piece reviews on the Patreon very soon, so you may want to join that for whenever I get started with those. May start sometime very soon. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the review. We got a very good chapter this week. A fun chapter, good action, had nice flow to it. The art was really good. The paneling was really good. Just kind of a really nice, really solid chapter. Now, there are two very big things that happen in this chapter. First thing, we find out what Reggie's technique is, and it's pretty much what a lot of people have been theorizing it was ever since it seemed like we saw it in use. Reggie's curse technique is called contract object reproduction. He uses up receipts or contracts and is able to produce the items or services described in said contract. So when he has a receipt for a kitchen knife, burns up the receipt, he gets a kitchen knife. Now, his ability goes beyond just creating objects, like the name would imply. That's why contract is also part of it, and that it doesn't just have to be items that he creates. He can create the benefits of services. He uses up a receipt for a stay at a hotel and spa, and just immediately is restored to, like, full health and stamina. So not only is he able to create items that he's able to use, he is also able to affect his own body. He is able to, I guess, sort of create status effects upon himself using his technique. Now, this technique is amazing. This is a fucking amazing technique. This is incredible. You, if you had this technique, could go around and, assuming that this functions like Mai's creation and that anything created with contract object reproduction is real, it just stays there. It doesn't matter if you deactivate your technique or anything. The object it has been created. It exists now. You could go around and just fish through the trash or whatever for people's receipts and never have to spend money on anything. My ideal, what I would do if I had this technique is I would find some kind of receipt, some kind of whatever, for the purchase of like an RV, because I'm pretty sure if you used this on like the deed for a house, you would just have a house pop up like right on top of you. It's probably not going to be connected to the electric and plumbing or anything. It sounds like kind of an inconvenience. RV, that's way more manageable as something that you can have just fucking pop up wherever you summon it. And then just look for people's receipts like in the trash can at grocery stores and just create groceries and then just live in my RV. And I guess probably, like gas station receipts and stuff. If there's any sort of luxury item I could ever want, I just go to the places where those are purchased, loiter around and watch people who purchase them. And then wait to see if they throw out their receipt in the trash can outside the store, and then I just take that and I make the thing for myself. This sounds like it would lead to very disturbing behavior. And Reggie uses this technique in fairly amusing ways. I already mentioned the spa treatment. He also uses it to create a moped that he uses to chase after Megumi, and then creates a bunch of drones to follow him. And he follows Megumi, he watches him through the cameras on the drones, which he connects to his phone, which maybe he also created out of a receipt. He creates, two big box trucks. So, yeah, you can create, big shit out of this. And tries to run over Megumi with them. Apparently, you can summon objects inside of other objects. He summons a kitchen knife inside of a radish. Also, you're able to give the objects commands like Shikigami. Simple commands. It's not like they're sentient. It's just like, when I summon this knife, I want it to fly towards my target. That seems to be the extent of the commands. Or, I want these drones to follow after Megumi. Something like that. So, relatively simple things. It doesn't just pop up and it's just there. It's, oh, I want it to materialize and do this when it materializes. Where do I want it to go? Something like that. All in all, although it requires like a medium at first, it requires the receipts, this is just a better version of Mai's technique. It seems to be way less costly in terms of cursed energy because it uses something. You could view it as, instead of just making something out of cursed energy like creation does, contract object reproduction uses the contract to then create whatever is written in the contract. So it's not just your cursed energy that's materializing something. So no, I don't think this breaks the power scaling or whatever. I saw like one comment about that, about how Mai could barely create like one bullet, whereas Reggie is just very casually creating a bunch of shit. First off, Maya's shit tier. Like, she was just, had like barely any significant amount of cursed energy. She was just the worst possible person to be stuck with creation. And this requires a medium. It requires something else to create the objects. It's not just something you make on your own out of cursed energy. Before I get into the second half of this review, I'd love to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons. Special thanks to Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, K-God, Chris Redfield, Scratch23, Rat, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, Chuck's Feed and Seed, Jakester Easy, Play Free Labs, and Emerald. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get shoutouts at some point during videos, access to reviews for the Boxer, or, in the very near future, access to One Piece reviews, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. The other important thing that happens in this chapter, Chimera Shadow Garden. Haven't seen this in a little while, and I've been figuring the next time we see Megumi's domain, it's probably going to be complete, and it kind of is. We know that Megumi's had a problem with visualizing the barriers of his technique. That's the part of it that he has an issue with. Just being able to imagine a separate space that the domain is summoned in is very difficult for him. And that's why his domain has been incomplete for a while now. However, if he's in a space in which he can very clearly visualize the parameters of the domain, then he can summon it. So we see something kind of similar to Malevolent Shrine. He lures Reggie into a gymnasium, and then he uses the dimensions of the gymnasium to then imprint his domain onto it. He summons the barriers of the domain, or, the interior of the domain, within the walls and ceiling of the gymnasium. So instead of creating a separate barrier like the little dome that we see domain expansions are usually in, instead, he's basically just turning the environment into his domain. Kind of similar to what we saw in Origin of Obedience, but now there are the actual barriers there. It's not just kind of like the floor is enveloped in this chaotic sea of shadows and Shikigami. And an interesting thing that's here that wasn't here before is there seems to be a vertebrae that has a bunch of nerves coming out of it. Presumably this is essentially Megumi's domain growing out and the nerves sort of latching on to the environment around him to form the domain. It's pretty cool. We don't have the official scans yet, so the scan quality for the domain expansion is not great. But looks very cool. Now this is, of course, kind of reminiscent of Malevolent Shrine, in that Malevolent Shrine doesn't have barriers. It's just, he summons the domain into the real world. The Malevolent Shrine is just there, and there's no actual barrier in it. It has a radius, but you can leave. In return for that, the inside of Malevolent Shrine, inside that radius, is basically a giant blender. So, you win some, you lose some. I don't think Megumi's is going to be that powerful, but presumably Megumi can maybe get some kind of benefit out of this. At the very least, you know, the benefit so far is that, oh, I don't have to master creating barrier techniques. I can summon my domain as long as I'm in a space that sort of has the dimensions that I need to summon it. So that's really cool. This is a really cool development we've gotten from Megumi. And I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out in the next chapter. I'm not so sure what's going to be happening to Reggie. We've seen clearly that Megumi is the type of dude to kill people, especially if he thinks they're a threat. So, you know what I could imagine? I could imagine that in the next chapter, Reggie gets absolutely dog-walked by Chimera Shadow Garden. Just gets totally shit on, and then is like, oh, please spare me, I'll give you all of my points if you let me live. And Megumi's like, okay, I'll let you live. So Reggie gives him all of his points, and then Megumi kills him anyway to get the extra 5 points. And also because Reggie's an asshole that would probably try to murder him again anyway. Because that seems totally in character for Megumi to do. If I were a betting man, I would say the chances of Reggie dying after this are decent. I like Reggie, I think his technique is cool, but I don't know if Megumi would let him live after all of this. I don't think his chances are great. But we'll just have to wait and see. Apparently Shonen Jump is on break again next week, which means we're not getting another chapter for a while. It means that we're going to get like another Monday release, which is still weird. That was so fucking strange. It's nice to have the chapter sooner, I guess, but then the wait for the next chapter is kind of a bit longer. Oh well, that's Shonen Jump in January for you, so we'll just have to deal with it. But with that, that's all I've got to say for this week's review. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews. Every week we get a new chapter. You should go check out my reaction for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 170 if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Until next time, take care.